This training video will give you an overview of the iEHR app. This app allows you to view patient appointments, to work with the patient chart, and much more. Now, to get this app, you can actually navigate to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and you'll do a search for iEHR. And once you've downloaded, installed that app, and opened it up, you'll be brought to a window like you see in front of you here now. Initially, you'll need to sign in with your organizational code and password. And once you pass that, you'll be provided a login with your individual username and password, and you can choose your location as well. A little further below, just before we sign in, it's worth mentioning you can choose to remember me with a PIN. Allowing us to put in a PIN helps us if we navigate away from our application. It's a secure way to be able to quickly get in without having to put in our full password every time. I'm going to sign in to the application as you can see here now, and right away we're brought to the dashboard. Now we'll get into some of the things below, but just for a moment I want to explain the button at the upper left. This allows us to do a search for patients, as you can see here, or even look at recent patients that we've worked with. So I'll just click on this first button and you'll see this will bring up a list of recent patients for easy access into their chart. So we could click one of those and get right into their chart. And similarly with search patients, we could search by patient name or MRN chart number, and we could be able to again quickly get into that patient's chart as well. You'll also notice we have an option in this search patient window. Aside from typing in a name and finding an existing patient, we can click on the new button here and actually begin the process to create a new patient. Now this process is much stripped down from the full version you would find on a computer as far as putting in patient demographics. We can essentially just put in the basics needed to create a patient, like their name, date of birth, and gender, and we would save that up at the upper right. And then if we had more, of course, to put in, we could do that on the computer side. In addition, with this button at the upper left, we also wanted to make mention of the KPI dashboard. Allows you quick access into some of the different reports available and your key performance indicators. So you'll notice you have a financial dashboard, a claim analysis dashboard, and a tracking dashboard. And each of these have a number of items you can click underneath them that will show different reports or graphs indicating different variables that allow you to track your practice and its performance. So feel free to go into each of these and take a look at that as well. We'll go back to our main dashboard, and one other thing we wanted to mention quickly, since we're in this top area, this top bar, at the upper right is where you can click on your little icon here representing your user account. You can see some information about your account, if that's been entered in, including the location, and then you can sign out by clicking this little circle with an arrow in it. What we want to draw attention to now is this main window down below. So you'll notice we have appointments and documents. And these windows are adjustable. At the upper right of each of these sections, you'll notice there's a kind of a display, set of display options. And we can choose which are we going to give more screen real estate to. So if we want more available window sizing for the appointments area, we can click on this middle button here, and you notice it condenses the documents section down. Further than that, we can even view appointments full screen by clicking the furthest over button to the right. It drops away the documents, and now we're just seeing appointments. Maybe that's something we want. Additionally, we can do the same thing with documents if we want to adjust its how much screen real estate we have with it, or we can make that full screen too. Just briefly looking at documents, you're going to notice that we have a number of different kinds of documents or flags that are in the system. Those can show up and accumulate here. We can simply click on them to open them up, and we'll also see an icon off to the right hand side to indicate what kind of document this is. For example, I'll click on this one for Linda Abbott. Just was a test flag, and you'll have some options down below to work with that document. Maybe you want to print it out or have it be signed, store it, things like that. So just notice that that's available at the bottom there. We also have a way of displaying documents different ways. Currently, we're in a list view where all the documents will just kind of be in a list format, but we can also change it to a card view where each document will be a smaller square. Let's go back up to the appointments area at the top, and we can do the same thing with appointments. When in this view, we can change, as you can see here, they're currently in a list view, but if we prefer a card style view, we can change that using that button at the upper right. As we look at our appointments, we're going to just see some basic information. Of course, the patient name, their reason for their visit. Here we have some for adjustment or active care. We'll see the provider along with the time of their appointment at the right. Additionally, we'll also see the status of the appointment. This kind of follows a workflow, a normal flow, I guess you could say, of the patient visit. Have they simply scheduled the visit and we're waiting for them to come into the office? Are they in the waiting room? Have we actually already acknowledged they're in the office? Are they with the provider? And so on. And so as those certain indications happen on the dashboard from the computer side, that indication will flow and show in this appointment here too. And if we had a lot of appointments and wanted to see just those that are in the waiting room, for example, we could actually use this as a filter and turn off all these other kinds of appointment statuses. And in this case, I'm just showing one that's in the waiting room, has not been brought to a provider room yet. So you could do that with any combination or however you'd like to work with that filter. We also have some additional filters over at the left. We can choose what providers we want to see for. Maybe we just want a certain provider to be able to be displayed. We just want to see appointments for that particular provider. We can also adjust the date here, as you can see, or the practice location too. So that allows us some flexibility in working with our appointments. We actually want to get into the chart summary, the patient record section for appointments. So as mentioned earlier, you could open up a patient using recent patients or search for patients, or you can click on a patient appointment right here from the dashboard. And I'll click on Linda Abbott's appointment here to do just that. So now that we're in Linda Abbott's chart summary section, we just wanted to point out a number of different things. Right off at the top, you're going to notice we have her picture, her name, and some demographic data. We can expand this area by using our finger or a mouse if we have it to drag that little window down. And now we have a little bit more information that we can view for her demographics. Additionally, we can click on the edit button at the left here, and we can change just a few basic demographics for this patient. We could change the picture, for example, name, date of birth, and so on. But for the full expanded capability of adjusting demographics, we'll want to do that on the computer side. I'm going to drag this window up just to make that smaller. And down below here this is where we're going to see our chart summary for this patient. And you'll notice it's broken up into these smaller subsections, and we can expand these subsections to be able to see the data within them. And that's indicated about how much data is in them with this little orange indicator to the right. Further, we see some buttons off to the right-hand side that allows us to do a number of different things. For example, in Vitals here, we could choose this blue icon to show graphs of data that's been entered in. So if there's certain discrete data that can be charted, that will have a graph kind of icon like Vitals. If we need to enter in something new, a lot of these different subcategories will have these yellow plus buttons. So just as you would expect, clicking that allows us to enter in data related to that subsection. For Vitals, for example, it actually is really nice that this is mobile friendly. We could use our mouse or our finger to simply drag a slider for some of these areas to be able to quickly put in data. Of course, we can type into it too by selecting the right area and using our keyboard. In any case, though, that yellow plus button will be pretty common among many of these subsections for us to enter in data. We also have this purple cog icon. This allows us to adjust our view. In this case with Vitals, maybe we don't want to see all the Vitals from forever, but maybe we just want to see Vitals within the last month. So by changing that view, you'll notice we've filter down our data, and there's no vitals actually taken over the last month. But if there were, we would just see just that. So that allows us some flexibility there. I'll go back to showing all in this case. And additionally, kind of like our starting dashboard area, we have this icon here to adjust if we want to see a list or card style view. So clicking that, you'll notice here we've changed to a card view for the vitals. Maybe we prefer that, or we can always revert back to the list view. So just know that you can go through here and you'll notice these very similar buttons for completing or filling out any of these other chart summary subsections that you see listed here. Now, sometimes it could be a lot of subsections depending where we're at to scroll through. So there is a button at the upper right here that we can click on. It shows all of these subsections, and if we want a quick way to get to them, we can click on that and it'll bring us right to that subsection. That's what that button does. Additionally, off to the far right, we have the ability to expand all of the subsections. So now that I've done that, we can scroll through and you'll see everything's been expanded out, and it's easy for us to see what has data. That could bring about a lot of scrolling as well, so perhaps we may want to keep that condensed much of the time. So we can just click that button again at the upper right. What we can do now is look into actually opening an existing encounter or patient note. There's a few ways for us to do that. You'll notice at the top here we have our clinical notes. So if I was to expand that, we can see some of the most recent notes. We could choose one and click on this little eye icon at the right hand side for us to preview it. It allows us to preview that note. We can print it even at the bottom right. That's an easy way to pull up existing notes. If we wanted more, to be able to view more at a time, we have this blue expand button. So it gives us a little more screen real estate again to scroll through existing notes. And we also have a couple ways to essentially start the process to create a brand new clinical note. As mentioned, we can use this yellow plus button icon, which oftentimes is going to be the easiest way. But know that you can also start an encounter by clicking these three dots above and clicking new. We can also open an existing encounter that way. And this red folder icon also does something similar, allowing us to not only view existing encounters or notes, but also to be able to create a new one. In this case, let's use this yellow plus button, and we're going to start off as if we were going to create a new chiropractic soap note in this case. You can see that's already selected on the left-hand side. This window actually on the left should match up very closely to what you see on the computer screen. So this should be familiar to you and how the different clinical notes, intake forms, and other things that we'll put into the system would display. But if we're starting a new chiropractic note, we'll notice off to the right-hand side, a number of things default for us are date, time, provider. So we can complete this or edit it as we need to, and then we can click save. And this will start the process for us to be able to fill out and complete a new clinical note. So now that we're in this new clinical note, we can see that at the upper portion of the note. We can see our date and timestamp. When we're ready, we'll notice this little lock icon. We can choose to sign the document, and it'll actually provide us some warnings before we sign it. Obviously, we haven't done anything with this note yet, so it's going to find some warnings. We haven't put any charges in, things like that. So it'll give us some warnings and allow us to continue or to back out and work on those before we sign the document. We've got those similar buttons as mentioned before, an easy way to navigate to the various subsections, and we can expand or collapse all. And just like we would on a computer, we could go into each of these subsections that are needed and complete our note using the yellow plus buttons in many cases. Some sections have other buttons for our use. This green button is a quick note entry button. Allows us to do so a little bit more quickly if we're putting in some of the data. That button is available in some subsections. Additionally, some sections also have this blue button here, allowing us to change or alter something. In this case, as you know, with the computer side of things, when you're recording the problem or DX, we generally just mark it stable every single time. If the problem or DX is no longer applicable, we can go into there and actually delete it also. That helps us to keep the order of our diagnostic codes proper for billing, and we can mention in other locations in our note if we need to adjust. If something has gotten worse or improved, we would indicate that there. So in any case, we could go through and complete our note, and again, once we're done and ready, we would be able to hit that sign button. Something to make note of at the bottom right, you're going to notice a couple buttons here. There is a calculator here that's available for certain calculations that we may need to do, especially in a clinical style setting. So that's here and available for us. We also have this envelope icon if we want to send or receive flags based upon this patient. We can see rather existing flags or create a new flag. Something else we want to make mention, maybe you want to actually work with a patient intake form. Maybe you want someone to sign an intake. Let's go back to that case and we'll show you what that looks like here. When we click these three dots, it's worth also mentioning that when we're in a current new note that we're filling out for a patient, we can actually preview the note, how it's looking as we go through and fill it out. We can still use copy previous or apply a template like we would on a computer. But when we click this three dot button, we can go back to the clinical patient record, that chart summary section we began with. And what I'm going to do is actually go into, I'm going to use this red button so you can see what that looks like. As I mentioned earlier, this allows us to view existing notes, but also create new by using the new button at the top right. So similar to what we did before. But we can look into this consent form area as an example and look at an existing consent form that has been filled out. And what's really nice is it gives us the opportunity, as many windows do, to print out this consent form, but we can also get a signature on this consent form right from our mobile device. So if I click that, it'll bring up this consent form for us. We can scroll down, and once we hit this bottom section and pull that up, we'll have some information we could optionally fill out. And then there's a signing area. We can have the patient even sign. So we'll put something in here, sign it for Linda Abbott, and hit apply. Okay, once that's applied, we can hit done. And if we needed to as a provider, we could also sign that consent form too, using, again, that lock icon. It allows us to sign it if that's something a provider would like to sign. Well, we hope this shows you a nice overview of the available buttons, the chart summary area, and completing a note for a patient. Feel free to play around with it, and we also do have a PDF document that goes through every single subsection and button you can click in full detail. Feel free to reach out to us. Let us know if that's something you're interested in. Thanks again for watching this training video.